wish I was at my stand-up desk right now.
I'm telling you, this is like circa 1985 or 84.
Oh gosh, is it 84?
80, I'm pretty sure it's 84. Hello, Confidant community. How many of you remember this one?
Like, hands up, who remembers? Don't be shy. Right here,
hello,
right now.
Confidant community. I'm just jamming to like my 80s vibe, right? Shauna, I just love all your energy over there. You've like got this. You've totally got this. Hello, Confidant community. It's Jackie Porter, live at 5 with the Financial Confidant. And you know how we do every week. Our mission is to make financial conversations accessible and hopefully fun. And of course, today will be no different. It's just been so fun just grooving over here with Shauna. And, you know, we've been sitting here listening to the sounds of Ace of Base. Does anybody remember Ace of Base? Anyway, the track was I Saw the Signs. And, you know, as your pretend DJ, I thought this song would be so fitting for the behavior associated with doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What is this the sign of, Confidant community? It's insanity, of course. And if we're doing the same thing over and over again and having expectation that something will change, I'm here to tell you it won't change unless you change. That's really what it is. And our divas, really their divas from Ace of Base is telling us, right, that's what it's all about. Right now, I'm applying that mindset to what you may have around managing and filing your tax returns, because that's really why I think people, Shauna, might get so avoidant when it comes to filing their taxes. They're like, I don't want to notice the signs. I just want to not deal with my taxes. And I think even more so for business owners. So Confidant community, if this isn't you, that's fine. But if it is, we're here for you. Can you relate to this? Do you wait until the last minute to start getting organized around your taxes? Are your receipts organized? Please feel free to post in the chat. Are your receipts organized? Have you talked to your accountant and know how much you're going to owe actually for this tax season before you actually get to the accountant? That's always the worst, is when you go there and they say it's this much and it's a surprise, right? So
no surprise rule. We have a no surprise rule.
Exactly. So if you're answering no to these questions and yet you complain about the tax filing process, you will not want to miss this live, okay? Because we've got Shauna Frederick here. She's been moving and grooving with me, and she's also an extremely talented dancer, I can tell over there. But she's also a CPA, a CA, and I don't know what an FEA is, so I'm going to ask you what that is in a second, Shauna. And also the founder of Finance Cafe. So, Shauna, let's talk. The tax filing process, especially for incorporated business owners, can be so daunting. Not only do business owners need to file a personal tax return, they also have to file a return for the corporation, and they also have to file an HST return. And as I said, they may not be organized in terms of where the receipts are. They might not even be financially ready to hear what the tax bill is going to be. And this, as we said, can really lead to that avoidance, leaving everything to the last minute, leaving kind of everybody involved in that process stressed. So, you know, Shauna is here. She's going to discuss some best practices to master this tax season. I know we're close to the deadline, so maybe next year's tax filing season even easier. So, Shauna, let's get into it, right? Because honestly, I saw the sign, but it didn't open up my eyes, really and truly. So let's start with the basics. So, community, just so we're all on the same page, can you help us by understanding, you know, what it means to be incorporated? I take nothing for granted on this show.
No, 100%. So being an incorporated company in Canada really just means that your business is registered as a separate legal entity. Now that's a lot of legal jargon, but really you're taking your business and you're going to the registry's office and say, I want to incorporate a separate legal entity to run my business. So I'm not running it as Shauna Frederick, I'm running it as something else. So it provides some protection, some liability protection, you know, some other instances. But with that comes a whole bunch of stuff. that even as entrepreneurs just starting out, there's all these things that we just don't know outside of taxes. But let's focus on the taxes. And I love this, notion of, I saw the sign, but, I chose to ignore it. We call it,
Right.
we call it the ostrich syndrome.
Right.
I'm just going to stick my head over here in the sand.
I saw the sign. No.
It's going to go away. Spoiler alert, it's not going away. This is stuff that we have to deal with. And let's face it, as humans, when something makes us anxious or uncomfortable, like, we do everything in our power to avoid it. So let's get our mindset around, okay, we're going to learn something today. We're not going to avoid it. So let's talk about the different types of tax returns first.
Let's, please. Okay. What are the different types of tax returns that business owners have to file, and when are they due based on the return? I think all of these things just, again, can be anxiety filling for people.
Yeah, 100%, right? So like individuals filing our personal tax return, the T1, right? We have our personal tax return. Businesses have to file what's called a corporate tax return, or a T2, whether you remember it as a T2 or just a corporate tax return. Okay, so your corporate tax return reports all of your income and expenses through the business. Right? So this is just relating to the business, completely separate from your personal tax return. And corporate tax returns are due, so you have to file them by 6 months after your fiscal year end. Okay, so what's a fiscal year end, Shauna?
Yeah, exactly.
So companies can have either a calendar year end, where it ends on December 31st, or they can have a year end that's any other date other than December 31st. So if you have a December 31st year end in your company, you have to file your tax return by June 30th. Right. If you have a March 31st year end, you have to file it by 6 months out, which would be April, May, June, July, August, September.
September, I think you're right. Yes.
So that's sort of what, when we talk about due dates.
Right.
Now, when you file them, when you're required to file them, is one thing. When you have to pay the tax on it, when you have to pay your income tax on any income that you earned in the company, that's a different date, just to keep things exciting for entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Going back to why it might be painful to stay on top of this stuff, right?
Why not make it the same date? Well, guess what? You can, but so first of all, in your corporation, any income that you earn will be taxable. And so you have to pay that either 2 or 3 months after your fiscal year end. So you're filing 6 months later, but you're owing that tax 2 or 3 months later. On top of that, again, just to make it overly complex, you might have to pay tax installments throughout the year on a quarterly basis.
Those fun tax installments. I just love those. I call them love letters from the government.
I know. And this is where I see the ostrich syndrome the most. And it's a little bit less that I see it now that most things from the government are electronic.
Right.
But when I first started in my practice, I would go to a client's office, or they would come and see me and hand me literally a stack of those brown envelopes from CRA. You remember the brown envelopes?
Yes, yes, I still have bad, really bad memories from those. Yes, I owed all these.
What is it? I would start opening up. There would be refund checks in there. Refund checks. You know, the government's sending you money. Open these.
That's like, a real love letter, by the way.
It's not all bad news, but yes. we all have this, this anxiety that I'm not even going to open this. I have clients that will just now flip me the email and be like, "Here, I got this."
Somebody deal with this for me, please.
I'm like, okay, but did we open it? Did we see it? Nope. So it's okay. So that's your income tax return. So anything that I need to clarify on that before we move on to the next return?
No, I think that's great. So I'm just going to quickly review that because I think it's so crucial to have these conversations often. Yep. So corporations, a structure where you can earn money in a shelter, and that money grows inside that shelter, and you pay taxes based on having that corporation at the corporate tax rate. And you have to file your tax return typically 6 months after you basically do your income tax. So you do your income tax, after your year end. After your year end. You file your taxes 6 months after your year end, and you pay your taxes for that corp 3 months. 3 months.
Generally.
Right? Generally. Yeah. So that's why it really can be confusing, because and you need a good accountant, right? You need someone who's going to keep you on the ball. Like my accountant I call our team professional naggers, but my accountant is just he is like top-notch professional nagger. If I've learned anything about professional nagging, I've learned it from him. And it's just really making sure, because people are busy, that they stay on top of these things, right? So I just can't emphasize enough. 3 months after you file, you got to pay your taxes. You've got 6 months after your fiscal year end or regular year end to file your income tax. So keep those dates in and stay in touch with your accountant. Don't call them. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But don't leave them hanging. Don't keep them waiting by the phone. Okay.
No. And I want to add one more thing there, because this is really important for all taxpayers and all entrepreneurs to know. If we're not paying our taxes on time, okay. So when we're required to make installments, so some of you on the line may be familiar with personal income tax installments, where you prorate your taxes for the year and you pay them throughout the year. Same as individuals do when they're an employee, they pay their taxes monthly off their withholding check. So if you're not paying your taxes on time, there is a 10% interest penalty on late payment of taxes. 10.
Yeah, so 10. This is not what you're earning in your returns and your investments. This is what you're giving the government because you
reiterating the importance of working with your accountant to say, okay, tell me when, and every good accountant should send you a listing of here's the dates and the amounts that you need to pay and who you need to pay. Put it in your calendar. As soon as you get that little piece of paper, put it in your calendar. Be like, or better yet, go online to your online banking and just prepay them, post date the checks.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's not worth it to hand 10% that you could be using maybe to take that micro vacation or to invest back into the business. Not worth just giving it to CRA. I know you guys all love CRA, but probably want to do something more productive with that 10%. So file your taxes on time and work closely with your accountant to make sure you don't miss those dates. Okay, so I guess that would lead me to my next question. Do you have to wait till the deadline to, if you owe taxes? And you're saying probably not a good idea to wait until the deadline to file your tax return or pay your taxes.
Not a good idea. But before we move on to that, do we want to talk about some of the other returns that corporations are required to file? Or just
so let's get into it. Let's talk about the different types of returns, because I know we started off talking about being incorporated. So let's talk about the different type of returns people can file. We talked about the regular personal tax return, the corporate tax return. What are some other tax returns
so for the business, just strictly thinking about the incorporated business, if you're providing a product or a service where you charge GST, HST, depending where you are across this beautiful country, you will be required to file a GST, HST return, a PST return if you're in one of the provinces that has provincial sales tax, QST return if you're in Quebec. So these are all the sales tax returns. And again, complexity that involved. So you can either file those monthly, quarterly, or annually. And when you set up your initial GST, HST, or PST or QST number, you will pick how often you want to file. Again, if you're only filing annually, so you have to file it, in that case, the 3 months after your fiscal year end. Again, just another random number.
Yeah, exactly.
But the amounts that you owe should be paid throughout the year. And again, 10% interest on the amount that you would have owed throughout the year. So reasons why it's so important and valuable to have a good bookkeeping software, which we'll talk about, and a good accountant that you can rely upon to say, okay.
Which we'll definitely talk about, because it is challenging. I mean, if you've got a business to run, it's hard to stay on top of all of this stuff. So professional nagging is important, and maybe putting those dates in your bill calendar. But we'll talk about some hacks in a moment. But I think the key thing here is, if you're a corporation, you have corporate tax return to file, and HST, or all the other ones Shauna just mentioned that you have to file for HST-based income. So really important to stay on that. Any other tax returns that we didn't?
Of course. So then we have, if you have employees,
right?
We have a payroll return. So you have to file your T4 returns.
That's right.
Due in February every year.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have, if you're paying yourself a dividend through your company, you have to file an information return.
Oh my goodness.
And if you're doing some importing, exporting, there's excise tax returns and customs returns. So again, this is why it is so valuable. Just even if you get it set up once with an accountant to say, okay, help me identify when I'm filing, when I'm filing, and when I have to pay.
So could you say that again? Because I think it's great.
Yep.
Help me identify
what I have. So what returns I have to file as
right.
an incorporated business,
right.
when I have to file those returns,
right. So
and when I have to pay.
And when I have to pay.
When I have to pay.
Got that, Confidant community? Like, no wonder we started off with music in this life.
Oh, come on. Is this not fun?
Exactly. When it comes to filing taxes as a business owner, the pain is truly real.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
The struggle is so real. Anyway, we will move on. But yes, as you can see, lots to keep track of. And that's what's going to lead me to my next question, which is what's the best way to stay organized around all of this, especially when it comes to keeping track of, because we have to pay, what's the best way to keep track of what are things we can deduct? Because I think that's a huge pain point as well for business owners who are just struggling to keep track of their receipts on top of due dates, on top of filing dates. It's, it's a lot. As you said, the struggle is real. The
struggle is real, and it is all the things. So the best way to stay organized is the method that you're going to follow. Similar to anything else in our life, right? Like, so if you want to work out, like some people do it every morning and that works for them. Other people, it's like, no, I'm never doing that. So you have to find something that works for you, and you might have to try and fail a little bit, and that's okay. So if you do only one thing, if you take away one thing from this conversation today, maintain a separate bank account and a separate credit card for your business transactions. Okay? That is one thing, right? Because once you start trying to pull apart your business from your personal life during tax season and you're through grocery receipts and meals and all of the like kids stuff, and you're going like, definition, right? I'm just going to beat my head up against the wall.
Yeah.
Go, right? So at least what you'll have to start with, this is not the recommended approach, but at least what you'll have to start with is bank statements and credit card statements that only have business expenses on them.
Yeah.
Okay? So you can give that to your accountant or your bookkeeper, whoever, to say, okay, here's all that I have. So this will simplify your life like a little bit to start with. Okay. Yeah. That's tip number one.
No, I agree. And I'm just going to add a hack to that, because this is something that's saved my life a bunch of times. Is finally I became techie. For those of you who know my techie struggles in the past, because sometimes I don't always bring the right credit card with me, and it's such a pain. So I have all of my credit cards in my wallet, my Apple Wallet, so that I can use my phone when I forget my card and keep track of all my expenses that way on the same business card. That's been a saver for me. So keep going, Shauna.
Okay, so continuing on with the tech space now, try digitizing your receipts.
Yes.
Shauna, what does that mean? Okay. Right, so consider using a scanning app. So when we go out for lunch, we can use something like Dext, D-E-X-T.
I love Dext.
Hub, right? You can scan a picture of your receipt, send it off to your accountant or wherever it goes. Right, done. There's HubDoc as well.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to use an app, just take a picture of it and store it in the cloud.
Yeah, I go on my notes page. On the notes page is what my bookkeeper told me, and then you can actually take a picture from the notes page and it'll organize it in categories for you. I didn't even realize that. So that's been a hack as well that saved me quite a bit. And I just do it on the go. So I just had lunch with somebody. I'm like, hang on a second, I just got to take the picture. I take it home, put it in my purse. I don't ever want to look at it again. So just do it on the go, folks.
Just do it on the go. If you're not a tech person and you're like, I don't want to deal with taking out my phone, go old school. Okay. Get 12 envelopes, write January through December on.
Yes.
Just stick your receipts in there. If you spend most of your time in your car, leave the envelopes in the car. If you spend most of the time in your office or wherever, just keep the envelopes there so that you can always just keep them in there. You can get really fancy, and put some categories in there, have a couple categories for meals or office supplies or whatever that looks like. Right. But again, whatever method you're using to stay organized, this has to be a method that's going to work for you. If everybody's like, oh, I'm using this great app, and you try it and you absolutely despise it, you're not going to continue doing it. Don't waste your time. Just be like, you know what, this envelope over here works for me. Your accountant will at least appreciate it a little bit more rather than you taking in, well, here's bank statements from personal and credit cards and this and that. Oh, and here's a couple receipts. Right? There's at least some form of organization.
I love that, because I think, again, I've gone through, confidant community. I'm always going to be 100 with you, and I've certainly had my struggles. That's a part of the business I like the least, is all keeping track of receipts and pieces of paper. All that stuff drives me crazy. So I've had my own pain points with that, and I've just relied on my accountant having these dialogue back and forth on different ways to keep track that end up working for me. So you may have to try a few things and fail, and then figure out what you're going to, as Shauna, as you pointed out so aptly, what you're going to stick to. And speaking of deductions, is there any tip you can give around how we can maximize our deductions as business owners?
Yeah. So I think this is really where incorporating, so all the other tips, and then now incorporating bookkeeping software. Okay, because once we start to incorporate bookkeeping software, what that does is it handles your bookkeeping. What's bookkeeping, Shauna? Yes. It is the recording of all of your transactions, so all of your revenue and all of your expenses, into a bookkeeping software, into a ledger, where your accountant or whoever is filing your taxes can go through and say, okay, here's a really clear picture of what you spent, right? How much money you spent, where your deductions were. And then when you go to think about what's the best way that you can maximize expenses, you need a clear understanding of what's considered a business expense.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a business expense? When we think about the definition is simply, an expense incurred to run your business. So there's a really great clip from Schitt's Creek. I don't know if anybody watched it.
Anybody on the Confidant community watch Schitt's Creek, please post in the chat. I haven't seen it, but I've heard really good things.
I haven't seen it, but this particular skit, it just kills me, because one of the characters is like, well, I bought this face cream because I'm the face of the organization and I have to look really good, so it's a write-off.
Right.
And I bought these luxurious
that's
sheets.
A good one.
I bought these luxurious sheets so I can get a good night's sleep, because then I'm a better business person, so that's a write-off.
Oh,
right. And so he's going through all these like ridiculous scenarios, and finally the dad's like, this is like, what's a write-off? Who writes it off? And the guy's like, the government, the write-off people. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. I love all of this.
I'll send the link out. But so really it's understanding what is a business expense. And I can send the link to CRA, to the Canada Revenue Agency's list of here's usual business expenses. So office supplies, like some meals and entertainment, some travel for work. Your vehicle, if you're using it for work, a portion of it can be. If you're using it 100%, that's different. So it's all of these items. Professional fees, so you hire somebody to do the bookkeeping, that's a business deduction, right? That's an expense. You hire an accountant. So it's understanding, so that as you're going through, but just keeping that definition in mind. An expense incurred to run my business, and on the upside. Because what we want to remember is CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, can come in and audit your books for 6 years.
Yeah, that's the scary part, which is why you really want to make sure you're on top of this stuff.
Yeah. So if they come in and you've got your luxurious sheet expense in there, and you're going to be the one that says, well, it was because I needed a good night's sleep in order to run my business.
Good luck.
You have to be able to defend that position. As much as we love to pay to file our tax returns, at the end of the day, you, business owner, are responsible to support anything that's in there because you've signed off on it.
That's right.
Okay. So love the black and gray area, gray and white, whatever, right? It's going, okay, so if CRA was to come to you and say, what was this business expense for? How would you defend that?
Yeah. And as you say that, I just think going back to, the bookkeeping technology and using technology, really hard to be able to keep track and remember what that expense was 5 years from now. If it isn't scanned on something, like that ink is probably pretty much done by then, right? So
100%.
So you do want to make sure that the receipt that you for the facial cream, let's say you're in a business where you can write it off, maybe if you're a makeup artist, but not so much if you're just a business owner that has nothing to do with that business. Just so you know. Anyway, if you're looking at the receipt and you simply cannot identify what it says, right? So
It
make
becomes
sure
a
that
challenge.
the receipt can live on long past, that tax filing year.
Digitize it, absolutely, right? Like nobody wants to remember what they spent money on 6 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
We've moved on. Like, let's just move on. Like, give CRA, here's all my information. And with the online accounting software, you can, if you're using something like Receipt Bank, Dext, or HubDoc, you can actually just take that receipt, scan it on your phone, put it into your accounting software, and it lives in the cloud, wherever the cloud is. It just stays there forever, and you can pull it if CRA ever wants to look at it. The other thing that I just want to point out, Jackie, is because I hear this so often. Somebody will come into my office all excited. My friend told me I could write off X. I'm like, perfect. What does your friend do for business? Well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you run a window shop.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. I had a feeling because, yeah, of course, it would be nice. Like I try stuff with my accountant all the time. And he's like, good try. Not working.
The worst. Total buzz.
I'm passionate about taxes. I have a very long tax bill. I've been working since I was like 14. So I've been paying taxes for a really long time. So I'm like, I keep trying. So I appreciate your paying confidant community when it comes to income taxes. The other thing I was going to ask you, Shauna, around structure is really how should business owners be structuring their business? I think the salary versus dividend is one of the things I hear all the time when I have planning meetings with clients. Should I take a salary? Should I take a dividend? Sometimes it's a struggle for people who don't take a salary. They may take a dividend, then try to, or a draw, and then they're trying to figure out what they spent their money on later. So I'd love any tips you can share on that front, salary versus dividend structuring.
Jackie, honestly, we could do an entire 30-minute session just on this conversation.
I know, I can imagine.
Because, and confidant community, I'm sorry, you're going to hate my answer, but it's always going to depend. But the first thing that you want to know is that you want to be paying yourself as an entrepreneur. So whether that's dividend, salary, whatever that looks like to you, you want to make sure that you incorporate a payment to you, the business owner, for running the business. That's key number one. How you do that is 100% going to be dependent on you and the business. So I think a lot of people have this misconception that there's this magic number between salary and dividends.
Right. Spoiler
alert, there's not. Right? The magic number depends on, do you have a spouse? Do you have children? Where are you in your retirement years?
Right.
What about CPP? And have you maxed out RRSPs? Like there's all sorts of questions. But the key thing outside of that magic number that you're going to talk, confidant community, you're going to talk to your accountant about to structure how the payment is that you want to make sure that as you're taking draws, salary, whatever you're calling it every month, that you're either putting some money aside for personal taxes, or you're sending it directly to the government to avoid the 10% interest. Okay, so again, same with your business taxes. Your accountant should tell you if you owe personal taxes personal tax installments on a quarterly basis. So you want to be paying those. So when you get your whatever amount of money that you're taking out of the company every month, maybe it's 30% you put aside, right? Again, talk to your advisor to say, okay, if I take this much out, ballpark it for me. How much should I set aside so I know that this isn't Shauna's money? It belongs to the government and I have it to them. Throw it in a separate bank account. Have a business checking account and a business savings account. Throw it in a separate bank account.
Yeah, and I think it's the surprise factor because I think when you're in business for yourself, you're in partnership with the government too. So something to keep in mind so that you are organizing. If I'm in partnership, that means what do I owe my partner as I'm running my business? Because I think the surprise factor for a lot of business owners, I remember early in my career working with business owners who were early in their career, not recognizing that it's painful if they didn't put money aside for that tax bill and not knowing, on a regular basis what that tax bill is going to be, and it being that end of the year scenario where it's the tax bill, it's the penalties, all of those things. And then they're now working on this year's income with last year's tax bill. And, it's just this vicious cycle.
It is. And I know we're at time, but I want to just add one more thing to that is if you find yourself in a situation where you owe money to the government, they will work with you to make a payment plan. Okay. Don't be afraid to have you or sit down with your accountant and say, okay, we need to call the government because I owe them all this money and I can't pay it right now. It is better to sit down with them and say, okay, I want to make a plan with you. Here's how much I can afford to pay on a monthly basis. They will work with entrepreneurs in order to do that. We don't want to ignore the sign, put our head in the sand, ostrich sand.
See the sign. See the sign.
See the sign.
It's flashing.
It's scary. It's uncomfortable, but just make that call and they will work with you. And the last thing is it's okay to ask for help. Like those who ask questions don't get lost.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing. You don't have to be in this whole tax game and trying to stay on top of the tax game alone. Like you realize that there's all kinds of options out there. Get support. I'm going to offer up, Shauna doesn't do personal income taxes or corporate taxes anymore, but I'm going to offer up again our vetted accountants list in case you're, with an accountant that you're not necessarily feeling you can have these conversations with, that you still feel like you have pain points around your taxes and it isn't being addressed. Please feel free to reach out to us for our vetted accountants list. We are here for you. I would love Confidant Community. We've talked about so many pain points when it comes to taxes. What's yours? What's your biggest pain point? I'd love to know. Please post in the chat. What's your biggest pain point around filing your taxes? Did we touch on all of them? Is it something that we've missed? Feel free to post in the chat because, as Shauna said, this live could go on for another 2 hours about taxes. Like it wouldn't be challenging to do that because there are so many pain points. I'm also going to share the resources, some of the resources you talked about. Do you have any other resources, Shauna, that you would like to share with the Confidant community that I'm going to put in the live summary?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it's appropriate, but can I give a shout out to our podcast?
Please do. Resources, your podcast.
You were like, no.
I was gonna,
and the only reason
I might have, just because I really like you and I tend to tease the people I really like. So no, but yes, feel free. What resources can you offer the company?
And the reason why I say this is because at the Finance Cafe, we have a podcast where we're normalizing the conversation around money. Because we know that, especially for women, 61% of women would rather talk about their own debt than money. So let's normalize this conversation. But launching next Tuesday, we have Faye Pang, the country manager with Xero bookkeeping software, Xero, who is going to talk about the benefits of outsourcing your bookkeeping and also just the benefits, like some of the technology they're using to try and simplify the process for entrepreneurs, along with their Xero partners who use the software. So tune in next Tuesday or have a listen to any of our other conversations.
I think so. Tuesday, Confidant Community. Wednesday, Confidant Community. We've got the live. We've got the Finance Cafe. I think as much as we can have these types of conversations, they're so essential. So yes, please check out the Finance Cafe podcast for more information on how you can kind of stay on top of your finances. There's no such thing as having too much information when it comes to finance. So thank you for sharing that. I know you also said that's not a tax write-off. I think that was a video that we're gonna share this coming Sunday on our Sunday live summary. And you also talked about the CRA business expenses. So we'll share that as well. So look out for that, Shauna. Thanks again for all of these amazing tips. Confidant community, please, let's use some of these tips so we can approach tax season with a bit more ease. If you missed some of the how-to Shauna shared, do not worry. We have got you. Look out actually for that summary I was talking about of the key action steps you can take this tax season to master tax filing when we post on the live summary this Sunday. So look out for that. And if you found this live helpful, remember, you are welcome to share. Sharing is caring. Share these tips with a friend. And thanks again for tuning into the live Confidant community. Remember to follow us for all the latest updates and see you next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Thanks again for coming.
Get to dance on the way out.
No dancing on the way out, but you know what? I'm so glad you loved I Saw the Sign. Again, the generation I work with don't seem to know any of these songs. So it's great that you know it. So I Sigh the Sign. Don't worry, Shauna, I've got a playlist for you. I'm going to have a Overcoming Tax Challenges playlist that we're going to release at the end of the month. So stay tuned for that as well.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, my friend.
Bye now.
Bye.